Kirby returns to the Switch with his first 3D adventure, or has returned. I don't know when this video will be available, but the concept of 3D is very ambiguous in video games nowadays. What is exactly a 3D game? Is Kirby and the Forgotten Land really Kirby's first 3D game? This and much more in today's video. Well, not really much more. Hey there, I'm Delta Ray and welcome to a new video. Kirby has been a long time active, since 1992 to be precise. 30 years no less. And that means many games, of course. But in all these years, Kirby didn't jump into 3D until now, in his second Switch game after Star Allies. This game I just mentioned was a 2D platformer just like most of the previous games of the Pink Path. If we look at other big Nintendo series like Mario, Zelda, Donkey Kong or even Pokemon to some extent, we can see that the jump to 3D has been made in most cases on the Nintendo 64, the first console to be powerful enough to run 3D graphics, which was used to give more depth to the games. Some franchises got out of this like Metroid because the project got cancelled, and I don't know if I shall count Star Fox because technically it wasn't 3D, but Star Fox for the SNES simulated it pretty well, with levels with a clearly 3-dimensional map. The same happened with Mario Kart and F-Zero. And of course Kirby did not get into 3D here, right? Kirby had a game on the Nintendo 64, Kirby 64 The Crystal Shards, and I asked the question from the beginning again. What is exactly a 3D game? The truth is that, depending on the perspective you give it, either Kirby and the Forgotten Land is the first 3D Kirby game, or Kirby 64, or maybe even neither of both. There have been many comments, and if I remember correctly, even official ones by Nintendo, but don't believe me too much, referring to the Forgotten Land as Kirby's jump into 3D, and this is not completely wrong, it's simply inexact. But for now, let's talk about Kirby 64, I'll get back into the subject later. Kirby 64 is the first, and only as far as I remember, Kirby game for the Nintendo 64. This means Kirby's jump into 3D graphics, I repeat, 3D. This basically applied only to the graphics, and the gameplay is essentially identical to previous games, with linear levels, but not really. A lot of levels have 3D stages too, and also it is true that the levels aren't fully open as the ones in the Forgotten Land are. They are way deeper levels than what was usual back then. Therefore, no, Kirby 64 is not a jump into 3D simply because of the graphics, but because of the added depth. Anyways, that depth is something added, as I just said, something that can be done thanks to the Nintendo 64's hardware. If I had to define this kind of 3D, I would have the graphic aspect in mind. Compared to the Forgotten Land, Kirby 64 is way more linear, of course. In the Forgotten Land, you can move freely around the entire level and interact in different ways with it, depending on your powers and the mouthful you use. In that way, the 3D uses another definition. The world is completely 3-dimensional. You don't have to jump perfectly only from left to right, for example. This is the jump to 3D that Mario and Link made on Nintendo 64. But there's still one 3D definition left, and the thing is that there is another kind of 3D in video games, in Nintendo games at least. In 2011, one of the most successful portable consoles hit the market, the 3DS. The 3DS, doing justice to its name, was basically a DS that allowed you to play in 3D. In other words, it created the illusion of depth in the screen in a way that created a 3D effect, managing to give the player an immersion into the game. You see where am I going, right? Not counting spin-offs, Kirby had two games for this handheld, Triple Deluxe and Planet Robobot. So the first Kirby game with this kind of 3D was Triple Deluxe for the 3DS. By the way, if I happen to count the spin-offs, the first one will still be Triple Deluxe. Let's recap. There are three kinds of 3D in video games. The graphic one, the one tied to gameplay, and the stereoscopic one. Kirby has jumps into the three of them, and depending on which one you talk about, the first is one or another. The The first graphic 3D Kirby game is Kirby 64, launched for the Nintendo 64 in the year 2000. The first stereoscopic 3D Kirby game is Kirby Triple Deluxe for the 3DS in 2014, and The Last Kind, Kirby and the Forgotten Land in the Switch in 2022. As I said before, there have been a lot of comments saying that this is the Pink Pop's definitive jump into the 3D, and that's not completely like that. It depends on what are you talking about exactly. I am not criticizing the new game, by the way, nor the people that likes it or that's hyped for it. I want to make that clear just in case it wasn't clear by the video's context. There's no doubt this is a great step for Kirby and that it's going to do great to him, for sure. Thanks to the Forgotten Land, Kirby is living a second youth right when he turns 30 years old, and there's only a bright future ahead. And that's all for today. I don't have anything else to say, I think. If you liked it, I thank that you subscribed and left a like and everything that could even slightly help me a lot. It means a lot to me. Thank you very much. Oh, I also have Twitter. Follow me if you want. And that's all, for real this time. Thank you a lot for everything and see you soon.